Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast. Each week, we have an interesting conversation with dads, fatherhood practitioners, and experts on matters of importance to men and fathers. Thanks for joining us. With today's episode, here's your Fathering Strong podcast host, Eli Williams.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of the Fathering Strong podcast. Eli Williams here, delighted that you were able to join us. And as my guest today, we've got writer, public speaker, and consultant Barbara Coloroso making a return visit, for which we are really, really grateful. She has worked as a classroom teacher, a laboratory school instructor, a university instructor, and that's not to mention that she is a former Franciscan nun. There's a whole lot we could talk about today, but I want to talk about some things really important to fathers, and that is ways of parenting that are nurturing, wow, we could spend the whole time talking about that, Barbara. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Eli. I so enjoyed the last time. I was looking forward to this one.
I've been looking forward as well, as we always do, and because there are some who may be watching this podcast and they weren't present the last time, they didn't get to hear your story, so we always like to start with our guest's fatherhood story. So tell us about your growing up, your relationship with your father, and what your relationship is with him today.
Well, first of all, I'll start with the fact that I'm 77, soon to be 78. So we're looking at a generation or two generations removed from many of the fathers listening here. I was born in New York, but at 5 years old, moved to a small town in Colorado, Fort Morgan. With my mom and dad, and I had an older sister and three younger siblings. And so I was the second in line, was supposed to be a boy, but I was a girl. And the boy came at the end. That generation, my father was in World War II, served in Egypt, never spoke of the war, and I needed to do a project in school once, and he just opened up this leather picture album of people he knew in the war and fixing the planes, because he was a radio person for the planes, but not a whole lot more. My uncle was with him. My other uncle, one of my other uncles, was in the Navy and was visiting my dad at the time of Pearl Harbor. So the group of them never spoke about the war. It was obviously they saw things and were involved in things they did not want to talk about. My father was the one who worked out of the home. My mother worked in the home and was very active in BFW and the Altar Society at church. The majority of the parenting was done by my mother, which is not atypical of that generation. Sure. Many times with fathers in their own world as a consequence of the things that happened in war. And I would say that's true of my father as well. And my uncles, and my aunt. My aunt served as well. My dad's sister, his only sister, served in World War II. So, and those who have family in the audience whose parents may have served in the war or served in Vietnam, know that there is generational trauma often associated with those kinds of things. I learned a whole lot more later on in life. My mom would speak of it later. My father died at 86. My mom lived to 92. My father worked until the day he died. That was it, in his mind, what he needed to be doing for the family. And so my relationship with him grew closer as I was an adult with my own children. He was entering an older time in his life. I think for my generation, that would not be an atypical story. And then I did take the trip to the convent. Glad I went. It was a wonderful opportunity to get out of a small town and realize how much bigger the world was. I entered a Franciscan order that was an activist order right in the midst of the civil rights movement. And so I began to see the world in a very different light than I had in a very small town where there was bigotry and intolerance, but it was toward very poor whites, of which I was one, living literally across the railroad tracks, and a large population of Hispanic people. And so I was aware of bigotry and intolerance, but not to the extent until the civil rights movement. And as a nun, to begin being immersed in that. I'm glad I went, and I'm really glad I left. It was a good experience for me, and where my life has taken me now is a gift. I have a husband, 3 kids, 3 grandkids.
So yes, then you began your parenting journey.
Yes. However,
We'll talk about this.
before that parenting journey, I worked with severely handicapped kids at St. Coletta's, which our order ran, which is where Rosemary Kennedy was. John Kennedy's sister, whose father had her lobotomized at puberty. And so I worked there with kids who were in what was called a residential program. But it was a very caring one. I learned a lot about teaching and actually a lot about parenting during that time. Then I went on to, after I left the convent, to finish up my university degree. And I got my graduate work working with troubled and troublesome adolescents and children on the autism spectrum. So my experience at the University Laboratory School was with seriously troubled adolescents. And there, I learned a lot about how kids can very quickly be punished for something they had done or not done. That where so many of my young boys were actually targeted by other boys because they were different in some way. And they couldn't take it anymore, and they struck back. And in basketball, the first foul is not caught. It's that second foul that's caught. And these kids were then in the adjudicated, and then they, for some, the prison pipeline. And at the laboratory school, our goal was to get them back into society, into the public system. And out of all the kids I worked with, only 2 who had serious issues had to go back, not to the juvenile justice system, but to more contained therapeutic environments because they had so many special needs. But the rest of them have gone on to thrive and become good adults, and many of them parents. And I watched them, and I also told my own children, you're going to have to work hard at shocking me. And believe me, all 3 of my teenagers did because I had not been, I was so used to working with kids who were troubled in the beginning anyway. So I figured if we can get through this, we can get through almost anything. We were foster parents for 2 of the kids. And that experience was amazing to me because they were in the middle of being adjudicated but had no place to go. And so we took them into our home. We had no kids of our own. My husband was the psych rehab counselor and then went on to work with migrants and refugees. And all of that held us in better stead in our parenting, just having those experiences.
Yes. Which also helped you in your teaching.
Absolutely. Those kids,
and your
like
writing.
Any kids, they teach us to be parents. They teach us to be educators. The thing I always told teachers is that if students come to us from very vital, functioning, healthy families, no matter what that makeup is, it makes our job easier. But if they don't come to us from vital, functioning, healthy families, it makes our job more important. And if we can keep that frame of reference, that when a kid comes to us in a school setting, I've always said any kid walking through that door needs 6 critical life messages every day. I believe in you. I trust in you. I know you can handle this. You're listened to, cared for, very important to me. Children need that message at home and at school every single day. And in the larger community, you matter to us. They need to know that they can make a difference in other human beings' lives. My kids taught me to be a better parent, and I'll guarantee you, my grandkids are teaching me to be a better grandparent.
Now, we live in a time in which more and more fathers are participating in the raising of their children, which is a really good thing.
Absolutely.
But so many of us, however, were raised up in a home in which there was a lot of power and authority exerted, and not a whole lot of nurturing and care. A lot of the things that you teach weren't present for most of us fathers when we were growing up. And now we are fathers and we want to do better. And the next generation behind me, I'm seeing it, they want to do better. And what you have learned and what you have been teaching and what you write about is so important for fathers to hear and learn. So let's talk about that. You advocate for nonviolent discipline and communication strategies that are really more nurturing, more empathetic, more understanding, and all of that. So what are some of the things that dads should know about raising children that way?
First of all, that fathers matter. And remember, I said, no matter what the shape of the family is, the children in that family need men and women in their lives, and grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles. And if you don't have your aunts and uncles around, as my parents, when they moved to Colorado, I had people that were aunts and uncles I didn't know were really not my aunts and uncles, but they were referred to as that. The Black community actually has done that forever. And having worked in Africa, that was an integral part there. However, the mindset about control and make mind, not authoritative, but authoritarian kind of parenting, my way or the highway, for your own sake, for your own good. We know now what we didn't know before. You know, someone said, now you know better, you do better. And I tell parents, don't beat yourself up about what happened in the past. As long as you and your children are kicking and breathing, it's not too late. I worked in prison, and I was invited in. They had to give up their gym time to come and hear me. And these were young men, middle-aged men, and old men, soon to be released from their prison sentence. And the place was packed, and they all wanted to know how they could do better now when they know, having had years in prison, that what they did was not healthy for their kids. But right now you can do better. And a grandfather said to me, it's too late for me to do it with my children, but I can do it with my grandchildren. I said, you know what? In doing it with your grandchildren, it's not too late for your own children to learn from you with your wisdom now that you have. So, but let's look. I'm going to very quickly summarize raising responsible, resourceful, resilient, compassionate human beings. We need to let them know at a very young age they have agency in their life. And that means you let them make lots of choices. And unless those choices are life-threatening, morally threatening, or unhealthy, let it go. You know, that purple hair in the teen years does grow out. And this too will pass. You know that thing, I just said that, and This too will pass. That's an old Sufi saying. But you know what the full saying is? Remember, in the good times and the bad, this too will pass. And that's so important in the midst of a temper tantrum with a child, in the midst of a rebellious middle school kid or a teenager who really thinks you know nothing. It will pass. And hang on to those good moments, because those too will pass. So in that framework, giving kids the opportunity to make choices, decisions, and mistakes, hold them accountable, and allow them to experience those consequences for the choices they did make. Again, unless it's life-threatening, morally threatening, or unhealthy. You don't tell a 16-year-old, go ahead and jump off the building. We'll discuss the consequences after you land. No, you pull them back. You don't let a child get in the car with alcohol. And those keys are removed physically, if need be, because it's life-threatening. But otherwise, red pajama, blue pajama with the little ones, those of you raising little ones. I didn't say to a 2-year-old, you want to go to bed or not. That's not a decision they get to make. But red pajama, blue pajama, shows up red bottoms, blue top, it's okay. What they're saying is, I can be me, apart from everybody else. And sometimes you laugh, sometimes you go, oh, what are the neighbors going to think? Well, and when my son, who's an artist, when he was in preschool, he put his 3 outfits, pick one, because we had increased it in such interesting combination, as he still does today as an artist. I made him a button that said, I dress myself. Little things like that brings it, okay, it's not me. He decided to wear a hat, and it's his body. And I have a grandson now in Colorado who wears shorts until it's like 30 below, and then maybe long pants then, but begrudgingly. But it's not life-threatening to him. He's only outside for a brief period of time. And so you let them make those decisions. Otherwise, if you demanded that they wear what you want them to wear, because what will people think if my kid shows up with shorts in the dead of winter? Then they'll balk you in the big ones. So let the little ones go. And then only fight the big battles you need to. So after you've let them make choices and decisions and mistakes, then we need to look at what is discipline and what is punishment. And we use those terms as if they're synonymous. And you had said nonviolent discipline. I'm very much into nonviolence and being active in our beliefs and standing up for values and against injustices. And punishment is not discipline. Punishment's adult-oriented. It's imposed from without. It arouses resentment and often teaches kids to do 3 things: flee, fight back, or be fearful. Into themselves, afraid to make a mistake, or they run out the front door as a teenager. So punishment's doing something to a child.
And there's one more thing I found, that children and young people have a way of internalizing that punishment, particularly if they feel it was unjust, and that builds up over time. They have all this anger on the inside, and eventually it's going to come out. It's
somehow. It's going to come out. It's that flight, fear, or fight. They're going to do those things if we punish them. Punishment's about control. And remember, it's something I do to a child. Discipline is something I do with a child to hold them accountable for their behavior and to teach them a new way. And so now there's a lot of ways to do punishment. Punishment, as we think about it, is usually physical. But there are other kinds of punishment. The yelling and screaming, where kids' little adrenaline system get scared, or they put their hands over their ears. I can always tell in preschool when a child has come from a brick wall family. I call it brick wall, very my way or the highway kind of thing, very controlling and manipulating and making kids mind. When they make a mistake, they're afraid. And we shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes. They're for learning. And so when they do this, or they cover themselves so you don't hit them because they think you will, when I never would in school, I can understand where the child is coming from. So let's say, oh, but I have hit my kid. I have threatened them. You know what? Now you know better, you do better. And it's okay to say to your kid, I blew that one. Let me come back a moment and come up with something that makes sense. And by the way, if you have an idea, I'm open, letting the kid know that you're open. And it's okay to say to a 16-year-old, you know what? I controlled so much of what you did, how you spoke, how you dressed, and now I know better. And I think you can make decisions that we haven't let you make. And let's talk about it. Now, if he says, well, I think I can stay out all night, you say, well, not yet. There's limits and boundaries. Brick wall is my way or the highway. However, we can also isolate a child as punitive, where we send them away. I don't want to be around you because you're a bad kid. Those are messages you don't want to give to a child. Because those are the ones, like you said, Eli, go into their sense of self and eat them up. And so you want to say, okay, that's a tool in my toolbox I need to get rid of. But what do I put in its place? Now, the opposite extreme is letting kids get away with anything because, hey, they'll learn from experiences. Where's the guidance, the wisdom of the adult? We are wise and we have to find that wisdom, and we learn through our own children. I have 3 kids that are like day, night, and afternoon. Did we discipline them all the same way? No, because they had different needs. They had different behaviors. They had different emotional states. And so we need to look at what discipline really is. So discipline means to give life to a child's learning. It does 4 things punishment will never do. Shows them what they've done wrong, gives them ownership of the problem, gives them ways to solve it, and most importantly, it leaves a child's dignity intact. Now.
Oh, that's so good. We're going to pause right there. That's good. When we come back, we're going to expand on that a little bit. I want to hear more from you on those 4 things. This is the Fathering Strong podcast, and Barbara Coloroso is my guest. We'll continue our conversation after this brief timeout.
A recent survey of the greatest needs of fathers determined that many of them want to learn how to be the best dads they can be. This includes seeking advice on fatherhood, parenting skills, and understanding their role in a child's life. We're happy to announce the new Fathering Strong book and suite of resources that includes a workbook, 30-day devotional and journal, and workshop materials. Written by Fathering Strong's Bruce Stapleton, this package provides everything you need for your personal growth as the spiritual leader of your home. Get more information at thefatheringstrongbook.com. Purchase the materials wherever books are sold.
This is Fathering Strong. Eli Williams here, and Barbara Coloroso is my guest today, and we're talking parenting. Listen up, dads. She's got some really important things here that she's sharing with us. And I want to get back to what you were just saying, Barbara, about these 4 alternatives to punishment and control. And one of the things you said, that it's important to help them find ways of solving the problem. Help their kids are smarter than we give them credit for sometimes. And getting them involved in thinking through something is actually teaching as we're disciplining.
Well, giving life to learning is, if you go back to discipline with authority, the Latin roots, it means to give life to a child's learning. And that happens in 3 situations: when a child makes a mistake, when they create mischief, or cause mayhem. You say, wait a minute. Why do I need to discipline a child when he makes a mistake? Well, because it's about learning what to do when you make a mistake. So let's look at all 3 of those in the bigger picture, at home and at school. A 3-year-old wants to hold a glass, right? Wants to be bigger than the baby that's now got the bottle. The glass. Be careful of the glass. Don't drop the glass. Crash, it's on the floor. The 5-year-old wants to make it down the hill without the training wheels touching, and they touch and they crash. These are mistakes that they make. High school, your 16-year-old in lab class. You say, be careful with the beaker, don't drop the beaker, crash, it's on the floor. Those are all mistakes. They're not mischief, they're not mayhem. There was no intent to harm here. So what do you do? There's, again, 3 kinds of families. Just like there's 3 kinds of schools: brick wall, jellyfish, and backbone. Backbone is not a mishmash of the two. And I would remind you that brick walls often marry jellyfishes, and it does not a backbone family make. We may have to both work on our backbone structure that gives you flexibility you don't get from a rigid brick wall, but it also gives an environment that's conducive to creative, constructive, and responsible activity you don't get from a jellyfish. And we need both flexibility and an environment that invites creative, constructive, and responsible activity from our children. Now, let's look at a mistake, the broken glass. Brick wall parent. Oh my, you broke that glass. You're going to use Tupperware the next 30 years of your life. Get out of this kitchen right now. Which says to a kid, not that you have a problem, but that you are the problem. And those are kids who will start to hide their problems because they're beginning to learn mistakes are bad. Whether it's at home or at school or in a friendship relationship, when they've made a mistake, they won't know what to do. The jellyfish parent, oh, sweetheart, what was I thinking giving you a slippery glass? Oh, my goodness. Come on over here and have some chocolate milk while I clean up that mess. Which says to a young kid, when I make a mistake, it's somebody else's fault. Got to find fault. And then I get your kid in school and he says, wasn't my problem. Worksheet wasn't dark enough. The teacher didn't give me enough time. The kid behind me was bugging me. Or the classic, he hit me back first. Not taking ownership for what they've done because we rescued them. You don't want to punish them. You don't want to rescue them. What you want to do is give life to their learning. So a backbone parent looks at that little one and says, you have a problem, go get me a bag. 3-year-olds can't pick up glass, but they can run along and get a bag. They can stand there and help while you put the glass in, and then they can help mop the floor up with you. And then you can say, let's figure out what kind of glass is best for you to hold with handles or that are plastic. Let's pick it out. I don't give them the solution. I give them options. Give them ways to solve that. And that's how you deal with the mistake. They need to know that it's okay to make a mistake. That when you do, there's a very simple formula for mistakes. Own it. Don't blame somebody else. Don't hide it. Just own it. I broke the glass. Fix it the best as you can. With the little one, he needed somebody to help him out. Own it, fix it, learn from it. Oh, maybe I need a plastic glass or a glass with 2 handles right now. And then move on. I'll give you an example outside of a home scene. Our son made a goal for an opposing team in a soccer game. And the score was 0-0.
On purpose?
No, it was a mistake.
Okay, good.
And what happened, he was playing goalie. He's also a left-footed forward. And their forward got injured. So pulled him out of the game. They had another goalie. That goalie went in. Joey got his goalie stuff off and then went out to play forward. As he ran out on the field, he fell over his shoelaces. The ball's coming at him. He gets up a little discombobble and runs down and makes a beautiful goal, left-footed goal for the opposing team. As his friend is going, the now goalie, no, Joe, no. And then as soon as he made the goal, he saw his classmate. He knew he'd made a mistake, a big one, because in a major soccer tournament, if you can hold that other team to 0, you get more points. And so he's already blown it to that. Some of the people on the sidelines wanted him pulled. They wanted him out of the game, but his coach handled it better. He said, Joseph, get over here. And Joe went over and he said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, coach. He said, I don't want an I'm sorry. That was a beautiful goal. Now get out there and make one for us. That's a good coach. And he went back out
That's a
there
really good
and made a
coach.
goal for him. You know what? I was so grateful someone on the other team also made a goal. So it wasn't Joe's goal just sticking out there. But that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And what do? The coach knew it well. You just get him back out there and tell him to fix it. Best way to fix it is get yourself a goal for your team. And then he also said to him, I never thought to tell you this, but maybe when you go in, you lean your shoulder into the side where the goal that you're going for is, body memory, to remember where to go.
Mhm.
So little thing, he's learning. He made a mistake. Kids make
Right.
mistakes. You let your kid, your teenager, take the car to school, and he backs it to a new post that so low he didn't see it. That's a mistake. He didn't purposely run it
Right.
over. And that brings me to, how do you decide if it's a mistake, Mischief or Mayhem? I call it the big I and the 3 C's. The big I is your intent. What is your intent? That little one who dropped the glass, the kid in science class who accidentally dropped a beaker, the kid who backed the car into a post that was brand new, he didn't see it. Those are mistakes. It was no intent to harm somebody else or to cause damage. The 3 C's, what's the content of what you're doing? He was walking with a little glass, walking with a beaker, playing soccer, heading down to make a goal. Their intent was not to hurt anybody, not to cause harm to anybody, not to cause damage to the car, to show Dad what I can do when I'm angry at Dad kind of thing. You look at what's your intent, what's the content of what you're doing? What are the circumstances you're doing it in? Walking from one place to the other with a little 3-year-old who didn't have full grass, and it fell. I mean, those of us who are getting older, some have Parkinson's and have difficulty holding on. Did they plan to drop that glass? Absolutely not. There was no intent, and the content, we maybe just have to look at ways to hold something different and the like, or spilling food, wearing a mop-peen. So I want you to understand that discipline is something that becomes a part of you, internal discipline, and serves you well throughout your lifetime, not just as you're growing as a child. That's why it's so important. Can parents become more self-disciplined as they're truly disciplining their child? Absolutely. Because then we begin to look at our mistakes without beating ourselves up. So you own it, fix it, learn from it, move on. Once you've decided that it's a mistake because you've looked at the intent, the content, the circumstances, and the potential consequences. You know, a group of kids, if you can teach kids the big I and the 3 C's, a bunch of kids get together over the weekend, decide they want to pull up some street signs and stop signs. The intent is to have fun and to put them in their bedrooms. The content of what they're doing is not good. The circumstances they're doing it in, it could be a very busy street. It could be a street that's rarely used, but people count on that stop sign being there. And the potential consequences can be deadly. You teach your young child the big I and the 3 C's. In his teen years, one boy was with that group of boys who had been trained in the big I and the 3 C's, and he said, no, the consequences could be deadly, no matter how much fun we have doing it. And they ended up not doing it. So if you can teach your child, I talk about the big I and the 3 C's from about 7 years old on up, which is typically looked at as the age of reason. But I can look at it with a child. What was his intent? He didn't throw the glass across the room. He dropped it. He didn't take his sister's favorite cup and drop it on the floor. You know, there was no intent to cause harm or make mischief. And so we want to look at, was it truly a mistake? And not say things like, you klutzy kid, I swear you're going to use plastic the next 30 years of your life. And what do you do if those words come out of your mouth? Have you ever grounded a kid, said something? I've had parents come up to me and said, I really blew it. I grounded my kid for 6 months, including senior prom, But you've always said, if you say it, mean it, follow through with it. And I said, if what you said was stupid, don't follow through with it. You go back to your kid and say, you know what? I blew that one. What I did was punish you. Let's look at a way for what you did, how you can be disciplined through this. And yes, you can go to prom. That was my bad. And I mean, why do you want a kid home for 6 months? I don't. So it's looking at that. And looking at the intent and the content and the circumstances. 2 kids make up a game, only 2 can play. There's nothing wrong with making up a game, only 2 can play. They're at home, they have nothing else to do, they make up a game, only 2 can play. The intent is good. The content, they make a jack game up, or that's an old game, but they find a game that the 2 of them can play together. The circumstances are home alone. The possible consequences, as long as they're not doing something awful or ugly or saying, well, let's go online and target another kid online. That moves it out of a whole different realm from the intent. This is how you make ethical behavioral choices, is looking at those 4 things. And so I want to do that in the presence of discipline too. So we have a mistake, and all of us can make a mistake. So own it, fix it, learn from it, move on. I've been in kindergarten classes and high school classes where they'll say, make a mistake, own it, fix it, learn from it, move on. That's what I want kids to do. Now, what if it's mischief? A kid does tic-tac-toe on the desk. A little kid is scribbling on a piece of paper, goes off the paper. That's a mistake. But tic-tac-toe on the desk, mischief. Or on the kitchen table, or on the wall that you just painted. That's mischief. There is a little bit of intent there to have fun and cause damage. So it's not the same as a mistake. So with mischief, now I'm going to use Joey as another example here. And by the way, it's always with permission of my kids that I tell tales here. Joey broke the beaver bait jar at the Natural History Museum. Could have been worse, could have been an irreplaceable dinosaur leg. Very replaceable beaver bait jar. It was in 3rd grade field trip, right? He didn't get punished. He didn't get sent to the principal's office, which could have been punishment, depending on how the principal handled it. He didn't get paddled, which, by the way, is still allowed in 19 states in this country, including my own state. That's punishment. Call it what it is. It is not discipline. You're not disciplining a child when you paddle them. And some put holes in the paddle to make it hit harder. To what end? You say, well, I'm going to control them. Well, that's your goal, to control and make mind. By the teen years, they're going to not be listening to you. They'll be doing what their friends tell them to do because they haven't learned how to think themselves. And so the mischief is the tic-tac-toe. Mayhem is writing a kid's name in a gross term on the wall. Going online and writing a kid's name in a gross term and spreading it all over the web. It's on the table, the dining room table. Mischief. It's not mischief, that's mayhem. So what do we do with mischief? Joey's teacher handled it so beautifully. She said, Joe, you have a serious problem here. I know you can handle it. He had to write a letter to the Natural History Museum. He had to replace the beaver bait jar, which is a trip unto itself. And for those of you in the audience don't know, beaver bait is female beaver urine. He'll never break another beaver bait jar. And before he could go on the next field trip, he had to have all that done. He had to replace the beaver bait jar, write the letter, and the like. Well, the Saturday morning, he got to go with the game warden. He got up early, got his little backpack all ready. He's so excited. And then he gets to see the game warden. The game warden explained to him very carefully how he had to collect female beaver urine. His eyes got huge. He looked at me. He looked at his dad, who was now smiling. And he said to the game warden, I have to do that? And the game warden so beautifully said, well, I didn't break the beaver bait jar. Put him right where he needed to be, but walked him through how he had to collect it. He didn't get banned from the next field trip, which is punishment. He didn't have to write 550 times, I won't break a beaver bait jar. He was shown what he'd done wrong, given ownership given ways to solve it, left his dignity intact. That's what we want to do when a kid creates mischief. Now, you might be saying,
Now, that's almost, I'm going to stop you here because I want to ask you a question about all
yes,
this. This is wonderful. And every school should operate this way. Every
no, we
teacher.
wish. That's my
Yeah.
goal.
The fact, yeah, the fact of it is, unfortunately, in many schools, and I dare say in most low-income neighborhoods, kids get the punishment.
Uh,
They don't get the discipline.
well, in my latest book, it's the smallest one I've ever written. It's Mistakes, Mischief, and Mayhem, creating a just, fair, just and caring school community. What I found was whether it's in a poor community or a wealthy community, a place of high status, anytime you have those kinds of I forget her name. She wrote the book Caste, beautiful book about India, but how it connected here. Anytime we
Yes.
see that caste system, what we will see is children with special needs, and I'm a special ed teacher, or kids who are in the minority get punished. The others are often rescued. And the punishment's pretty severe. It is, when you arrest a 6-year-old and put them
Yeah.
in zip ties as they're begging the principal not to have them arrested, we have a problem. We have a serious
Yes.
problem. When we have Utah, the second largest school system, was put on the Justice Department's control, the federal Civil Rights Division, because they had students who were minority or people with disabilities being relentlessly targeted. And as they were investigating, a 12-year-old girl with special needs who was also Black killed herself. These are deadly consequences for punitive measures that they take. But in that same district, there was a minority student. A teacher told a racist joke, horrible racist comment. And he stood up, this young boy, and said, using a foul word, F you, that was a racist statement. He was suspended and then expelled for being disrespectful. Now, the school board looked at that and said the teacher did the right thing. The Justice Department in the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department said, no, that kid needs to be let back into school. However, nothing happened to the teacher. And do you think that kid's going to be excited about being in high school? When teacher just could go on her own merry way and continue to be abusive. So this is my life's work in education. My favorite part is in the parenting part, but my life's work is getting schools to look at discipline and punishment and how they're so different. And yes, we rescue a lot of students because of who they are, who they're related to, what position their parents held in the community, who caught them. And we can't do that. What we have to do is look at, what did the kid do? Was it a mistake? Was it mischief? Or was it mayhem? And have consequences that fit the situation. So in mischief, most of the things we're dealing with in school are mistakes and mischief. However, when it comes to bullying, online and offline, we move right away into the mayhem category. Now, is there a range of mayhem? Absolutely. Calling someone a gross name is bullying. Targeting them online with fake AI morphing of their bodies is bullying, but that's a much bigger issue. Both need to be dealt with, though. All bullying is mayhem. Now, not all mayhem is bullying. A major fight where kids are hurting one another. An assault, which is criminal bullying. Those kinds of things deserve more severe consequences than things that we can handle right in the classroom. But they all need to be held accountable. When it's mayhem, there's 3 R's: restitution, resolution, reconciliation if it's a conflict, and restoration if it's bullying. And so restitution, own and fix whatever you did at whatever cost it takes. And those of you listening who happen to be teachers as well, or you have students, your own children, who have been affected by online bullying, where they have morphed your child's picture into something, or they have spread ugly rumors, there's a new federal law called Take It Down Act. Now, that's an acronym for a long bill, but it's Take It Down Act, where now finally the platforms themselves have 72 hours to get that removed. It has to be removed at their cost.
Good.
So, but also holding the kids accountable for what they did. So restitution, own and fix what you did. Restitution, resolution. Tell me how you're going to keep this from happening again. And most kids will say, I won't do that again. I said, well, that's good. That's what you won't do. Tell me what you will do. And this is where our wisdom comes in, because I don't know. I said, well, one of the things you could do is call her by her given name. Another thing you can do is sit behind her in class so you're not bugging her, or sit in front of the class. Or if it's really severe, take another English class. Why is it the targeted kid that always has to sit in the front of the bus? Why is the targeted kid has to change classes? Why not the kid is being mean and cruel? Mayhem, for the most part, is about mean and cruel, with one exception. Sometimes when it's a mistake, and farmers know this so well, you can have a farm accident that was actually a mistake that causes horrific consequences. That person who caused those horrific consequences didn't intend to do it, but they still need to heal from that. So we have to help them heal. That's the whole purpose of that. When they make a mistake or they create mischief, if the consequences end up being severe, then we use those 3 R's with them as well to help them heal. So restitution, resolution, if it's a conflict, reconciliation. If it's bullying, it's restoration, restoring back to the whole. That's
so good.
Yeah.
You are just so full of these wonderful gems of truth and
55
wisdom.
years of doing this.
Well, it shows. And we're going to take our final time out. And when we come back, I want you to tell us about some of the biggest lessons you've learned from what you've been doing and what you would consider some of your greatest accomplishments. My guest today is Barbara Coloroso. She is an author. She's written Kids Are Worth It, Giving Your Child a Gift of Inner Discipline, one of her bestsellers, and then Parenting Through Crisis, The Bully, The Bullied, and The Bystander, Extraordinary Evil. Just because it's wrong doesn't make it right. So much wisdom is in this woman. And so we will be continuing our conversation after this brief timeout. This is the Fathering Strong podcast.
Fathering Strong informs, engages, and empowers dads to be their best as fathers. Visit our website, fatheringstrong.com, for a wealth of resources, including informative videos, articles, books, devotionals, courses, research, and more. The Fathering Strong mobile app is a platform that empowers dads to connect with each other for mutual encouragement and support. Download it for free at fatheringstrong.com. And now, back to our conversation on the Fathering Strong podcast.
Thanks for being a part of our listening audience today. We do appreciate it. This is the Fathering Strong podcast. Eli Williams here, and Barbara Coloroso is with us today. And we've had just a very interesting conversation about ways in which dads can be better fathers, and how teachers can be better teachers by teaching nonviolence, truly discipline rather than punishment. That has been probably our theme today, Barbara. I appreciate that. Of your 58 plus years of teaching and sharing this wisdom all around the world, What would you say is the biggest lesson you have learned in your journey as a wise counselor in this area?
That probably the biggest thing, because I started my career very young doing this and then grew through my own children and grandchildren while I was also teaching, is that there is always time to grow. There's always time to learn new things. There's always time to learn from one another, and not to be judgmental. I mean, I talked about punishment, but I won't judge somebody who used that as a parenting tool because they didn't have a better tool. It's okay. Now
Mhm.
you know better, you can do better. And I won't argue with anyone over 2.5. Their language skills are too well developed and I'll lose. So I'm not going to argue with a 15-year-old or a 40-year-old who says, I know it was good for me to be hit, so I'm going to hit my kid. I can't change that person's mind, but I can look at alternatives for them. And I want them to think deeply
Mhm.
about what their real goal is. Is it to raise kids
Mhm.
who can stand up for values and against injustices, who are not easily led, who don't do to please, who have what Carl Sagan said all 3-year-olds have, the gift to skepticism and wonder? Would you not wish that for your children?
Now, you're not 30
Nope.
anymore.
Oh,
You're not even 40,
no.
and yet you're so filled with energy and enthusiasm for this work. What keeps you going?
Um, I love to work with people and encounter different. I just came back from New Zealand, working with administrators throughout the whole country, from private schools to public schools to uh, a variety of ages and stages, from administrators who were brand new in the field, so eager to learn what new to do, and also mentors, the older people who've been around the block a few times, who are still there to learn, and it's exciting to me. And um, I've had people write me notes saying, my grandmother gave me your parenting book. Or, I heard you 40 years ago and I forgot that I heard it from you. It's just become a part of the way I parent. That thrills me to no end that it's theirs. And then they heard me speaking, I know, I heard that woman. I know that voice. Um, and I know about the red pajama, blue pajama. So that heartens me. And then I'm constantly learning. I had the experience of working in Rwanda with orphans from the '94 genocide, and look what's happening in our world today. And I learned from those kids who had been orphaned from seeing their parents macheted to death and siblings macheted to death, that we can move on. We can go beyond the worst that has happened to us. I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting Eli Wiesel for a 15-minute meeting that lasted 2.5 hours, um, talking about him surviving the death camps and being able to move on and do something good for others. And I think that's one of the biggest things is having people say to me, that they've learned from what I've said and some of my mistakes that I've made, and then be able to make it their own. That's the key in parenting and fatherhood, is saying, uh, I can do this. I really can be a better parent. I tell my children, you can be a better parent than we were. It's called evolution. Moving on, growing from where we were at, and we made mistakes. You'll make your own mistakes, and we're always here. I love it when my own children would call me up and say, "And a friend of mine needs to talk to you about struggling with their teenager or their toddler." And they knew the answers. They knew the answers. When I would talk to them about it, they felt bad about what they had done. I said, "But now what are you gonna do? What can you do? Can I give you some ideas?" And they knew in their hearts that what they had done was not good for them or their child. Listen to both, because it's a two-way communication, and that now you can do differently. Um, I was in Amman, Jordan recently, and then got to meet the principal of the middle school sometime later. And he was so excited because parents are saying, thank you for not suspending my child. Thank you for not paddling my child. Thank you for giving him ownership for what he had done. And then making him do the work, because discipline is more work for the kid than it is for you. So saying that, I didn't do it in Amman, Jordan. They picked it up and moved with it and did it for kids. We can make it.
Yeah.
We can spread your podcast. We can spread the message. It's what people do with that message that matters.
Yes. Yeah. So good. And you have written a new book. So before we sign off, tell the folks about your new book.
It's mostly what we've been talking about, and it was written for educators, but it certainly has things in there as parents, because your kids are spending a lot of time in school, and some of them may be punished. And you want to change that. You as a parent can have influence in your schools, but also to take a look yourself at a mistake and mischief and mayhem. It's called Mistakes, Mischief, and Mayhem, Creating a Just, Fair, not punitive, caring school, because that's what we want to live in our communities, is a just and caring place. And if you go to our website, www.kidsareworthit, the title of my first book, all spelled out, you can find a handout for this book, Mistakes, Mischief, and Mayhem. But for all of my work, there is a handout attached that's free. And in the upper left, right-hand corner, you can see a 68-page digital summary of the bullying book if you happen to be dealing with bullying in your home or your school, and ways that you can help your child, but also, no matter what role they play, bully, not so innocent bystander, because our goal is to raise brave-hearted kids, witnesses, resistors, defenders, who can stand up and speak out and step in, know themselves, and know their relationship to other human beings. Martin Buber said it beautifully, I am I and you are thou, we have a common humanity.
Barbara Coloroso, my guest today. info@kidsareworthit.com is her email address if you want to talk to her personally. At gmail.com, kidsareworthit. at gmail.com, and you can check her website, as she said, to get information about the new book and the other resources. That's at Kids Are Worth It. So we want to thank you so much for being, again, just a wonderful guest on the Fathering Strong podcast. You are such a delight to have on.
Thank you, Eli. It's been a real joy to be with you again.
And we thank you, folks, for being a part of this installment. Join us next time for the Fathering Strong podcast.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Fathering Strong podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, were inspired, challenged, and encouraged. By subscribing, you won't miss an episode, as you'll receive notifications of each new posting. Go to the Fathering Strong YouTube channel to subscribe. For an informative weekly read, sign up for the Fathering Strong blog posts. Find them at urbanlight.org. Fathering Strong is powered by Urban Light Ministries, a nonprofit Christian organization that has been serving families for nearly 30 years. Charitable gifts by people like you enable us to offer resources free of charge. Go to www.urbanlight.org to give. Thank you. Join us for the next installment of the Fathering Strong podcast.